XMG have improved CPU performance by 25% in their Neo 16 gaming laptop with an update to the water cooling design. And they've sponsored this video at CES 2024 for us to check it out, as well as the updated Neo 17 and a new smaller Fusion 15 design. Let's start out with the Neo 16 and dive straight into what's responsible for those impressive performance gains. Just for context, in last year's design, there was a pipe soldered on top of the air cooler for liquid cooling. This worked fairly well, but CPU performance could suffer as the loop sits above the GPU. But now the cooler has been completely redesigned for 2024. The water pipe is now integrated into the cooler. You can't actually see it here. This image from XMG shows the path of the water pipe in blue. The new design increases the surface area contact of the water pipe with the rest of the cooler. And as the pipe isn't soldered on top of the air cooling, it also means there's less physical obstruction to airflow, resulting in better thermal efficiency. Even without liquid cooling, the newer 2024 design supports an extra 10 watts of combined CPU and GPU power on air cooling compared to 2023. With Cinebench and Furmark running at the same time on water cooling, we're looking at 160 to 170 watts on the GPU and 100 watts on the CPU, for a total of 270 watts. Basically what MSI's larger Titan 18HX is apparently capable of, but in a smaller 16-inch chassis. XMG had an early sample, and I ran a 10-minute Cinebench R23 multi-core test. Towards the end, it had settled in at 84 degrees Celsius on average, and up to 94 for the CPU hotspot, while using 175 watts. But it can boost as high as 205 watts at the start of a test. After comparing the score to last year's Neo 16, I found a 25% performance boost, which is quite a big improvement between a single generation. Yeah, the newer laptop has a newer 14th gen CPU, but realistically, the 14900HX isn't that different to the 13900HX. Most of the gains are from the cooling improvement. The test isn't even fair for the new laptop either, because the hotel suite I tested in was definitely warmer than where I normally test for reviews. Plus, this isn't final hardware, firmware, or drivers either. And of course, it doesn't count for any unit-to-unit variance with liquid metal contact or CPU silicon lottery, so results may vary. We were able to get 35,500 points in Cinebench R23 from idle in a single run with the liquid cooler and fans maxed out. Not bad at all. The liquid cooler connector has also been improved again this year. It's still magnetic and self-sealing, but now it's using a mechanical design with a metal pin in the middle. You push it in and it makes an audible click, confirming a tighter, more secure connection. The tubes are modular and are supported with the XMG Oasis Mark II. This year, only the higher-end RTX 4080 and 4090 configurations have liquid cooling support. The 4060 and 4070 don't use as much power, and they figure enthusiasts are more likely to go for higher-end GPU options. This is also why the 4080 and 4090 use Thermal Grizzly Conductonaut liquid metal on the CPU and GPU, as liquid metal is harder to service due to being electrically conductive. But don't worry, the 4060 and 4070 still use Honeywell PTM 7958 on the CPU and GPU, which is just what they call the popular PTM 7950 when buying in bulk in larger tubes. The specs are the same though. There are more improvements than just cooling. The Neo 16 has a completely new all-aluminum chassis, including the top, interior, and bottom panel, so no more rubbery grip touch on the palm rest. The Perky RGB keyboard isn't mechanical this year, but this has some advantages. The WASD and numpad areas act as air intake now, which contributes to the improved air cooling mentioned earlier, and also helps the keyboard feel cooler to the touch. This just wasn't possible with the Cherry MX keyboard. The layout of the keys is improved too. The new membrane keyboard is bigger, meaning less space between the edges of the laptop. Here's last year's model for comparison. Note that the numpad only has 3 columns of keys and the position of the arrow keys. Now here's the new one. The numpad has 4 lines of keys the way it's meant to, and the arrow keys are separate, which I prefer. Oh, and the touchpad is 13% larger this year too. It's bigger in both dimensions. The lid goes back the full 180 degrees now, and the bottom chin below the display is much smaller too. The compromise is a slightly thicker lid to fit the PCB for the panel behind it instead of underneath. But I found this new design to greatly improve screen wobble compared to last gen. Last year, the lid would flop all over the place, but now that's much better, even if you bump bump the table hard. The new design also means different panels can be used. The 2024 Neo 16 still has a 2560 by 1600 240Hz screen with advanced Optimus, but it's brighter now at 500 nits instead of 350. The 1080p camera above the screen is dual sensor now. This results in better quality as the IR camera for Windows Hello Face Unlock is separated from the RGB camera lens. There's also a physical camera shutter on the RGB camera, though that will be black instead of red on the final version. The Neo 16 also adds an extra USB Type-C port on the left this year, and the one on the back now has support for Type-C charging with up to 100 watts. The performance button now has different colors to represent different performance modes, allowing you to quickly see what's enabled. Pressing the key cycles between performance modes, but now you can hold the function key to enable fan boost. You can still change this through the BIOS, but now this update lets you have the best of both worlds. Now let's move on to the larger XMG Neo 17, which also gets that performance button update in the mech keyboard option. The outside of this year's Neo 17 chassis is the same as when I covered it a couple of years ago. All the changes to the Neo 17 are on the inside, where it's been updated to Intel's latest Core i9-14900HX processor, and just like the smaller Neo 16, this time liquid cooling support and liquid metal is only present on the higher-end RTX 4080 and 4090 configurations. But in 2024, the pipe for liquid cooling also goes over the CPU now. Last year's model was only over the GPU, but now the new one covers the CPU too. So it's not as integrated as this year's Neo 16, which uses a much more modified design, but it still means better CPU performance and thermals compared to last gen. The new cooler design also now properly covers and connects to the PCH. This was previously missing and compensated by a thermal pad. The new cooler from 2024 can also be retrofitted to the 2023 Neo 17. XMG will announce price and availability later, but that's pretty cool for people that already have one. Oh, and like the Neo 16, the Neo 17 also gets USB Type-C charging with 100 watts on the rear port. XMG's Fusion 15 is coming back this year. If you recall, this was the Intel collaboration laptop back in 2022, but now that the Intel NUC team has left the chat, they're no longer involved. Maybe that's why some regions will have an AMD Hawkpoint version available. XMG haven't confirmed they'll offer it with AMD yet, so let them know if you want it. They'll offer it with Intel's Core i9-14900HX processor and up to NVIDIA RTX 4070 graphics, so no liquid cooling available with this model. The Fusion 15 is basically a smaller, more portable version of the Neo 16. The all-aluminum chassis feels nice, and it's the first laptop I've ever seen with a 15.3-inch screen, so just a tiny bit smaller than the more common 15.6-inch panels, but it's also 16:10 rather than 16:9. Unfortunately, the Fusion 15 doesn't have G-Sync or Advanced Optimus, but it still has a mux switch. Honestly, after the Queso update, gaming with Optimus on doesn't lose anywhere near as much performance as it used to anyway, so I don't think that's a huge loss. External monitors via Thunderbolt or HDMI still connect to the discrete graphics, bypassing Optimus and allowing G-Sync. Speaking of ports, the left side has a Kensington lock, USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A and C ports, and a 3.5mm audio combo jack, while the right has an SD card slot and two more USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A ports. The back has a Thunderbolt 4 Type C port with 100 watts of Type C charging, HDMI 2.1 output, 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, and the power input on the right. Despite the smaller size, it still fits the same membrane keyboard as the Neo 16. The keyboard goes right to the edges, so they're making the most of the space and not compromising on functionality despite the compact design. It feels nice to type on, and the new keyboard design also means air goes through the WASD and numpad areas like the Neo 16 too. Even the touchpad is the same size as the bigger Neo 16, so it's quite large here. Here's how the Fusion 15 cooler compares to the Neo 16's cooler with 4060 or 4070 and no liquid cooling. Very similar as you can see. Some changes apply to all three of these laptop models, like the RTX 4080 and 4090 configurations still use the same 330 watt charger, but the 4060 and 4070 4070 use a new smaller version of the 280-watt charger. Unfortunately, they didn't have them to show on video, but you can see the difference in dimensions here. There's also an option for a new smaller 240-watt charger if you don't need full performance on the go. All three of these laptops also have a new hardware-based iGPU mode, guaranteeing the DGPU can't accidentally get woken up and improving battery life. It's available either through the BIOS or Control Center software with a reboot. Alright, here's XMG's roadmap. XMG's Neo 17 launches first, with shipping starting from early February for the higher tier RTX 4080 and 4090 configurations, and from the end of March for the RTX 4060 and 4070. Last year's Neo 17 also gets a price drop. You can check current prices with the links below the video. The Neo 16 comes out next, with pre-orders likely starting late February or early March, with availability in mid to late March. As for the Fusion 15, we're expecting late March or early April. So definitely some nice improvements to XMG's Neo 16 this year, as well as some tweaks to its bigger brother, the Neo 17, while the smaller Fusion 15 still has plenty of power if you're after something a bit smaller. There are plenty of other new gaming laptops coming out in 2024, and you can find out about all of them in the rest of my CES 2024 coverage over here next.